Hey everyone, welcome to Home is Where the Heart is. I'm Allie, your host and fellow military kid. I'm building this community as part of my Girl Scout Gold Award project to make sure no military kid has to navigate this life alone. My goal is to create a lasting space for us to find our footing no matter where the map takes us next. This is a spot where we can connect and share advice about all the highs, lows, and messy in between of life on the move. And if you're not a military kid, you're still welcome. Gain some empathy and learn something new. So, if you've ever packed your life into a box, survived your first day at a new school, or wondered what it's like to do those things, you're in the right place because here, home isn't just a place, it's where your heart is. So, on today's episode, we have Ava and Cooper.
I think that's me.
So, first, to get everyone familiar, we're just going to do some like icebreakers, and you're going to each, let's say, what's your name? Tell us about yourself, your military connection, and a little timeline of your moves and where you're currently living.
All right, I will be happy to go first because I feel like I've had to say this the most. My name is Cooper. My dad is a retired Marine veteran, hence retired. He retired about a couple years ago. I was born in Virginia, but I only lived there for about a couple months, so I can't really say anything on behalf of Virginia. After Virginia, I moved to California for 3 years. After California, my dad got onto embassy duty, so we got to live in Brussels, Belgium for about a year and a half. Then we turned around and lived in Malawi, Africa for a year and a half. Then we went back to California for about 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. And then we moved to Okinawa, Japan, which any military kid who's lived there longer than a year will tell you that's like the best place to live. I lived in Okinawa for about 3.5 years. Then my dad retired out of the military there, which it's pretty weird when you retire out of the country. So it was definitely a difficult transitional moment for us. After that, we did a civilian move to Louisville, Kentucky, where I lived among civilians for about 10 months. It's also where I found Bloom and I found this great military kid community. After those 10 months, I then moved to Maryland as a civilian, but I do live near a base, so everyone's kind of familiar with the fact of what a military kid is. So there is still something of a military kid community here. And
Thanks. You got a whole grocery list there, huh?
yeah, yeah, I imagine that we're all like that.
Go ahead, Ava.
So I have a bit of a different story. My name is Ava. A little bit about me. I am the third of four kids, so that comes into play because with my dad, who was the person in our family who was like service duty, so he was in the Air Force. He was a doctor, and so while my siblings, when they were younger, they had like the constant moves, especially between like California, Las Vegas, California, Las Vegas. I was born in the mix of that, so like the moving kind of slowed down by the time I was born, which was like 2009. And so I was born in Las Vegas, Nevada. And then my dad was deployed when I was 3 to Afghanistan. And so then during that time, we would like go back and forth between California and Las Vegas because my mom was taking care of like 3 kids. So, and we have a lot of family back in California. So it's just nice to have that support. And then after he came back, we lived there for like a year more. Or I think actually, no, it was just 3 years. Yeah. And then we moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And I spent 4 years there. I spent like a lot of my childhood years growing up there, I would say. I feel like 3 to 7 is kind of like when you mature a lot, but like you're still a kid. And then I moved to Texas, San Antonio, Texas. And so that was the longest I've spent anywhere. So a good solid 6 years. And I think that gave me a good taste of what it's like to just like live in one place. I don't know about you guys, but just from like watching movies and TV shows, you always like hear about having a childhood best friend. And
Mhm.
so being able to develop that in third grade meant so much to me, especially because I was going to a school that had like the same system from preschool to senior year of high school. So you're growing up with these people. And it was such a surreal experience for me. My dad retired while we were there in 2021. And then we made a civilian move back to California so that we could be closer with family.
Ava, that's so amazing. I'm so glad you got the other side of the coin there. It just shows like how unique it is. And it was still obviously hard, even if you didn't move like the traditional sense of, oh, your parents in the military, you have to move all the time. But you still did A, like move all the time, but B, it's just like a different way
Yeah.
that it can go. It's just like it's a whole spectrum, is what I'm saying. So that's really cool. So I'm gonna ask the question that nobody knows how to answer. Where is home to you? Do you have a home?
This is going to sound crazy on the nose, especially considering what this podcast is called. But home to me is where the heart is.
Yes.
I feel like that's kind of the right answer on here.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
I mean, what is there to say? Home is obviously, it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But for me, home is not just where your heart is, but it's where your family that you've chosen or your friends are, or the community or the life that you've built is, right? Even if you have to leave it behind when you move away, kind of.
For sure. I agree with you there.
Unfortunately, the screen recording cut out there, but Cooper was just talking about how he found his home in Okinawa and how that was some of the best experiences that he's ever had.
Yeah, I was actually born in Japan, so people ask me if I'm Japanese like every time I say that, and I'm like, clearly, right? You can see it. No, and I actually do not have dual citizenship either. Thanks for asking. But yeah, I mean, I totally feel you, and I love that community in Japan. I was little, like 2, when I moved away, so I didn't really experience any of that. But it's cool because people don't realize a lot about the overseas communities, like in Germany. When I was stationed in Ramstein, that was a really good community. So many military kids. But yeah, it's really cool. All these like hidden pockets that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, it really is crazy. When I lived in Belgium, my family would always make a point to go visit Germany, specifically the hotel and the base, just because there was so much military families there. And my mom, my dad, and I, we all just loved interacting with other families, just hearing about all the crazy worldly experiences they've had.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you guys are rising seniors.
Yes.
Right,
Old
so
ones.
yeah. So how do you guys feel a little bit about going into senior year?
Honestly, it doesn't feel real. Like up into this point, like before, in junior, freshman, sophomore year, it's like senior year, like it's going to be
All this
so much
hype.
fun. It's going to be the year, like after college applications, we'll be like hanging out all the time, and this is like the peak high school experience. But now, as we're actually in like the midst of college applications and starting to seriously think about our futures, it just feels like something that has to happen that I kind of wish was already over by now.
Yeah,
For
and
me,
sorry, Ava.
sorry, I cut you off.
How many schools did you go to in high school? You just had one high school?
Yeah, one high school. The only time where I like changed schools a lot was especially in like elementary school, because I went to like one kindergarten and then a different kindergarten, or pre-K, kindergarten, different first grade, different second grade, different third grade. Yeah, that's when like I was changing schools a lot more so when I was younger.
Okay, so you've had the continuity throughout your high school though.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of military kids in your high school?
No.
No.
Like, weirdly enough, it was something like I think most people don't know about me, like even my close friends. I guess like it's something you think that you tell people, but then like maybe they don't exactly understand what it means. So like they just maybe don't remember it. But yeah, there is not.
And then you just like random lore drop and they're like, what?
Yeah.
Mhm.
By the way, yeah, that's why my dad was he was sent to Afghanistan when I was 3, and it's like, oh, well, I didn't know
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
For me, what always gets people is telling them that I lived in Malawi, Africa, and it was the poorest country in the world at the time.
Wow.
And so that's always gotten, a wow out of people. So it's always fun to just randomly lore drop on people.
And how do you feel about going into senior year, Cooper?
I feel old. I feel tired.
Unk.
I've been through being the new kid so many times. I'm so glad I finally am able to set that down. And after 3 years, I finally, get to keep everything that I built up in junior year. But
Mhm.
it's like Ava said, it doesn't really feel real. It doesn't feel like I'm here. Like I remember the
Mhm.
seniors that changed my life when I was in freshman year and my sophomore year. And I'm the same age as them now, and it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, that is crazy, just reflecting. So you are lucky enough to get that continuity for the junior then senior
Mhm.
year, huh?
Yeah.
A grateful, a lucky, treasurable experience as a military kid.
Well, I mean, I'm not like Ava, who's at all 4 years.
Right,
I'm
yeah,
lucky
she's
my
too
dad
lucky.
retired early. Or
I
not
haven't even
early,
lived
but
anywhere for 4
early.
years.
Yep, and that just goes to show, like, the spectrum again, like, all of our stories are so different and so unique, which is why it's so cool just to be talking about them. Because I think that, like, every single military kid, even if their dad retired when they were 2, there's still parts of their life that are so interesting, and there's probably someone else out there a little just like you too. So I think that's really cool.
I feel like it's just like the moves are so important, but I feel like just in the way that it changes family dynamics per se, that is something that is like hard to change. Just in the way that like maybe like for example for the person who's like parent retired when they were 2, like maybe it affected their older siblings different, which affected how like they were raised in the future and it affected like
Mhm.
maybe the mom. And so all these different things becomes embedded in just who and how you are no matter like when your parent retired.
I fully
Yeah,
agree
for
with
sure.
that. My younger siblings, there is a 9 and 7-year age gap between me and them. They are
Ooh,
gonna be
okay.
able to they're gonna be able to finish elementary school and middle school and high school all without ever moving.
Crazy.
They're gonna have it so lucky, right? I'm not gonna sit here and say that it should have been me, but it really
Could've
should
been
have
you.
been me. It could have been. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're the oldest of the 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 5, and I've got a 10-year age gap
Oh
between
my
me and
goodness.
the youngest. So my dad, I think, both my parents, my mom's in the reserves and my dad's active duty, so it's both of them. But my dad is the one who basically, like, he is like why we move, because he's active duty. But since it's 10 years, I can't imagine my dad's gonna be like 10 more years, um, until my brother graduates. I think they're gonna settle down probably in the next 3 to 5 years, but um, they're definitely lucky ducks.
Yeah.
No one's gonna get the 10 schools and 8 moves like I am. But yeah. Okay, so has your perception of home or where you belong changed over time, or were you like in a limbo and then you picked? So Ava, you said not quite a born and bred Texan, but that feels a lot of where your heart is. Whereas Cooper, um, you never had an answer. You just want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Honestly, for me, and this is gonna sound just so strange because I haven't lived there in years, but Okinawa, for me, that's like the goal. That's where, if I ever go into the
The peak.
military myself, which I am very strongly considering, that's
Really?
where I plan on going. Or
Okay.
if I can, I will fight all the recruiters
You
and
know we
all
don't
the
get a
commanding
choice.
officers. We won't get a choice, but I will fight to make sure I do. I've gotten
Honestly,
out of
like
worse situations for less.
I feel like we should touch on like going into the military in the future because that'd be interesting to discuss, and I'm interested to hear like what you guys think. But with like the Texas thing, I feel like I don't necessarily feel like I'm super Texan, like because I did like go back and forth between California through a lot of my life. A lot of the time I was like romanticizing wishing I could live here. So that's why living here seems like a little unreal, maybe, because it's like the military life versus wow, like I can just live here normally and it's not a vacation. Seems super strange, but it's like hard to define where home is because with our moves, again, I'm like so lucky to be able to stay in that more like continuous space as you mentioned. It's like aligned with different periods of my life. So like, Georgia was like early childhood, Texas was like kind of becoming a teenager, and then like California was just like living out teenagehood. So it's almost aligned in a way where I feel perfectly like attached to both. Like if you could make a state out of Georgia, Texas, and California, that's where I'm from.
Sounds like pieces of your heart.
Yeah.
Future Voldemort incoming.
Right.
Yeah. You better watch out, Harry Potter. I'm coming for you.
And Cooper, you said Japan's your goal, like your best place that you lived.
I've heard many different things about the different areas of Japan. If I could get specifically that island, Okinawa, 100%. I cannot speak on behalf of these other places, so take what I say with a grain of salt. But I've heard Sasebo is not the best place to like end up getting stationed at.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize if there's any listeners here who are in Sasebo right now.
You can make it a home. Walk in.
Yep.
Yeah.
The community of anywhere is just what you make of it.
So, Cooper, you mentioned possibly joining the military. What are your perhaps college plans, little 10-year goals both of you have? Cooper, you can go first.
In truth, I really don't know. I know that I am really good at video editing and social media marketing. I know that's where I shine the most, and I definitely have a lot of fun doing it. But I really don't see any job that I can't see myself doing. All I know is that whatever I do, I just want to be able to do it better than anyone.
Open horizon. Okay.
Wow. And where does the military come into play with that?
I really don't know. I could do anything in the military.
Recruiting?
Maybe not recruiting, just because I've met a lot of recruiters in my life. I don't know. They haven't always like... It's not their fault. Whenever I've talked to recruiters in Louisville, they always just kind of assumed I knew nothing about the military. And when I started using military lingo with them, like PCS, Skill Bridge, they were all very impressed that I knew what those things were. And, then I walked them through my life story of being a military kid, which is that conversation alone probably lasted much longer than this podcast episode.
So what branch would you want to go into, possibly?
Marines, just because my dad was in the Marines. Most of my family has either been Army or Marines. My mom and dad have made me swear up and down that if I do join the military, I have to join the Space Force or the Air Force because that's what's more, and I'm saying this in quotations, safer. But the way I see it is that if you, and this is going to get like just a little in the thought process for a second, but if you're in the Marines or in the Army and you get like shot in battle, there's still like a good chance you can survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the Air Force and you're in the Space Force and your ship goes down, I feel like you have less of a chance surviving.
I think you got a point there.
That's logic.
One would
I've tried to
logically
bring to them multiple times, but they insist that it has to be Space or Air Force. But I may not honor those wishes if I do end up joining.
I think a lot of parents have really strong preferences about. I feel like my parents have told me like you have to join, like not you have to, but you should join the Air Force because that's what they are. But yeah, that's really interesting. Ava, how about you?
Similar with Cooper. I don't have like strict 10-year plans, honestly. It's like pretty open-ended, and that goes back to the whole conversation we were having about senior year. And it's just like the fact that you should really have this figured out by now, and I don't. So that's kind of where the stress comes. And for me, it's more like considering like you have to think about, okay, what is realistic? Like, yes, what are you good at and what do you like? What are you able to like support yourself in a lifestyle that is sustainable? And it's like like what can pay your rent, but what will also make you want to get up in the morning? Those kinds of things. And it's like, shoot, I don't know, like majority of the jobs that are out there, I've never done. So figuring that out, it's like, geez, how am I supposed to know? And now we have like the whole direction with AI and that replacing jobs as well, which is hard to tell even for people who are kind of already in that space because who knows what could happen. And it feels like there's a lot of uncertainty around that sphere, but I think it'd be cool to do something that mixes like STEM and liberal arts because that's kind of how I am.
Okay.
I lean into both fields, and so like that's where like fields like behavioral neuroscience, which is a class I'm taking right now, is of a lot of interest to me. So something that ties like maybe that STEM with a human-centered connection would probably
Okay.
be ideal career.
Yeah. So, do you guys have any four-year universities in mind, or are you still guys like?
Over the past 4 years or so, I've kept like a bunch of different lists of colleges that I've been recommended to by some professors, some video teachers. I haven't reviewed that list yet, and I just know that it's in like a bunch of different places, but I counted them up about a couple months back. I think I have 17 different colleges I'm looking into.
Okay.
All were very highly recommended. I'm probably gonna have to narrow it down a little bit, but I
Perhaps.
trust a lot of my teachers.
Open horizon, though. You've
Mhm.
still got time. Ava?
Honestly, I'm across all the states I've lived in. This is another question to ask y'all, but in terms of like just weather, man, California weather you can't beat. Like, I don't. Have you guys been in like Georgia in like the springtime? It's
I
like
was in Georgia just
there's
a couple weeks ago.
Atlanta.
I
Yeah,
was in Georgia
Atlanta, yeah.
yesterday.
there like growing
Okay.
up there is so much pollen. Like I remember like during recess there's just like you can see the
Yellow.
pollen everywhere and I had awful
Cars. Yeah,
allergies.
yeah.
Yeah, and then like Texas unpredictable things going on, but like California is it's just hot, no humidity, you know. There's like a bit of a breeze. So I like the weather here, my family's here, and so in terms of colleges like Stanford would be a dream, but there's also like UCLA and UC Berkeley. Those
Mhm.
would be like my pretty up there top three choices, just in terms of location. But I think this is a little unrealistic because East Coast weather is intense. But there are like colleges like Yale, which have more of that interdisciplinary approach that I respect. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I will say something as I've started to look at colleges. So I did a summer program at Auburn in June, and it was amazing. I loved it. I would say the biggest con to Auburn for me personally is the location. Like Alabama weather is not like great at all. I was just back in the South, right, this last week, and my skin just broke out, and I was like, oh my god, this again. Not really like 4 seasons, maybe like 1.5 seasons, like hot and then a little less hot.
Yeah.
But my point was going to be, I guess you guys have both of your parents are not moving around like as consecutively anymore. But for me, this assignment is going to last probably 2 years, max of 3. So people are like, oh, like you said, I want to be my family, but I have no idea what my family is going to be. I'm sure once I start college, they'll probably get the best assignment ever and like go back to Germany or Japan or something. And then that's going to be so hard. But I guess you guys, like, luckily don't have to think about that as much. But even just like so much of how people decide on college is like, oh, I want to live really far from my parents, or I want to live really close, or I like this place. And I'm just like, I don't know.
For you, it's like your parents could be anywhere.
Right.
Does
Probably
that
not
open
even in the
up,
country.
like, are you considering any like international colleges maybe?
I've looked into some. The college process for international schools, like Oxford is kind of similar to America, but like for example, like University of and then like a city like in Italy, they don't do like, I think the right word is holistic. They just,
Yeah.
it's like a test score and you
Yeah.
either pass or you don't. And so I'm like, okay, I don't think that's like exactly right for me because they do it first of all in like August. So like August of 2027, I would take like the college admissions test. And if I don't like meet the cutoff, like I'm not going to college. I'm like, that's a little too um not enough planning for me. I'm a big planner. So I don't think that's exactly right. Plus like the GI Bill, I have some of that. And some universities have really good like Auburn, for example. This is a great tidbit. A lot of public universities, so I have post 9/11 GI Bill, and it's divided among my 4 siblings. So we each have 8 months of it. And Auburn lets you use the benefits for 4 years. So at Auburn, that means you get in-state tuition. So I get in-state tuition for 4 years, even though I only have 8 months. And I think there's a couple stipulations, like can't fail any classes, you have to stay regularly enrolled in like the fall, spring. But that's just definitely something to look into. Even if you only have a month of the GI Bill, you can stretch it for 4 years, which is definitely something to consider when you're looking into colleges.
That is really good to know. In fact, I'm
For
going to
sure.
write that down really quick, just because, right, college applications are coming up.
There are. Do you guys have any military benefits? Is that affecting what schools you might be picking?
In truth, my dad knows so much more about it than I do. He spent, I think, months researching military benefits because when we were living in Louisville, we were considering multiple job offers from multiple states. If you know anything about Kentucky, it's the military members there don't get any benefits unless if the military member passes away, and then all of the
terrible.
benefits go to the family. And so once we realized that, as we were already moving there, we realized we want to get out of here as soon as possible. And I think that Maryland, where I'm at now, definitely has a lot more benefits just because there's a lot more military presence here.
I think same here. My parents know more about the benefits. In terms of like the GI Bill, I think that's why they're like pushing for the UC system, because I know with like in-state tuition and things like that, it's really good for the UCs. And that is like a factor I'm considering when applying to colleges for sure.
I don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty confident that your state residency, right? So I was born overseas, so my state residency is in Alaska, along with the rest of my siblings and my parents, because 2 of my siblings were born there, and then that was like the first state I lived in. So we're all residents of Alaska. So that would be like, that's what our license plate is and stuff. But you could usually make a case to public universities. There's a couple laws like protecting military kids and in-state tuition, because especially if you lived there before. So even without the GI Bill giving me like the in-state tuition at Auburn, there would probably be a way to get in-state tuition. So for everyone out there, like, it's really like they understand your situation. And if you've lived in like Germany your whole life, you could possibly also get in-state tuition in a lot of state universities because of the uniqueness of your situation. You just have to, if they don't have a specific section about it, you can just email their financial aid department and be like, hey, this is my situation. But yeah, the public universities definitely are open to doing that.
That is insanely good to know.
Yeah.
All right, I love all the information I'm just gathering here.
Educational for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. So we're going to go a little bit into some maybe advice or things that you wish people knew about military kids. So what is the most common misconception about military life?
Man, where do I begin?
Think about it for a sec.
Honestly, and this is going to sound incredibly backwards for a second, but when we say that, you know, we've moved and we've lived everywhere, this obviously can like vary from military kid to military kid. From what I've seen, some take like some crazy offense to like, oh my goodness, you must think that I'm awesome because I've lived everywhere and I haven't had to lose anything ever. And some are just like, you know, you don't need to acknowledge the stuff that I've lost. I'm fine acknowledging just the fact that I move often and it's crazy. For me, I'm just kind of in the middle, right? I don't take offense to as much as some others do, but just try and kind of be mindful, you know, just whenever you're talking to a military kid about where they used to live. Because yes, it can be cool, and people like me absolutely love to hear how cool it is. But also, some others can take offense to that. I have made that mistake myself a couple of times when speaking to other military kids.
That's where
definitely.
I feel like it comes down to whenever you're talking to really anyone about anything, to approach it with an open mind and not be like, okay, this is what I know about it. And oftentimes, like, I saw a Bloom article written about Jessie, like the Disney show, and how she was a military kid, talking about that. And for some people, that is
The
their
most
only
stereotypical
yeah, their only
from
introduction to
Texas.
military kid life, and they're just like, so you were like raised in a tank, right? Which is obviously not true. Just like approaching any conversation with like an open attitude and kind of leaning into whatever that person is talking about. So like the person already seems like more, what's it called, like offended that you think it's super cool, but for them it was like kind of more a vulnerable place for them and they didn't enjoy it as much, then like ask them more about that. So just leaving open space for them to give their honest thoughts, opinions outside of like what your narrowed view may already be. And I think that just brings a lot more perspective into the situation, because as Cooper mentioned, it can be such a cool thing. And like we as military kids like acknowledge that, but there will always be the drawbacks, which I don't think I'll ever be able to stop talking about, like um just like the pain of losing friends. That is something for sure. And just hearing like how people move on without you, that is like a for sure thing you see, whether it's like social media or just every time you call and check in with those friends who used to live there, you're like reminded that like of your missing presence. So there are so many multifaceted sides to it, and just approaching conversation with the open mind and being here to listen instead of gathering what you already think is true can be so valuable and is appreciated by a lot of us.
I think many of us. And again, talking about it's a spectrum. And how would you feel if someone's like, "Oh, well, your parents retired, so like it wasn't even that bad." Like that would be so insensitive to say, right? So just again, like keeping like everyone goes through their own problems and no one's are more or less like tragic or whatever it is. We all go through our own ups and downs, and some places are great. Like maybe somebody hated Japan, and that's what like that's. I didn't mean to offend you like that.
I've actually met a lot of people who really didn't appreciate their time in Okinawa. Something I've found out about almost all of them is that they just haven't lived there long enough. I think about a year is when you really start to bring it in and appreciate it. Because I remember for the first year, I didn't like it. It was hot. It was humid. I couldn't talk to anyone off base. I was failing Japanese, and then I failed it again. But I learned to love it, and I still don't speak fluent in Japanese, but I made things work.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, what was the hardest thing about? I'm like, we can all pick like 20, but what's like a lesson that you learned, or maybe your hardest move, or your hardest goodbye? Let's talk a little bit about that side of things.
For me, it's that you can't hold on to everything forever. You guys are going to be so tired of hearing this, but when I moved from Japan, it really was like I had lost everything. I spent all of my middle school years there, or at least the second half of sixth grade there. That's kind of when COVID hit. So my first half of sixth grade was just a bunch of online stuff. And I spent all freshman year there. When I went to Kubasaki High School in Okinawa, Japan, it was just so unreal because it was the largest Dodea, or I guess it's now called Doia, school. And it just had such a great community. I knew almost every single person, including teachers of classes I didn't have. There was just so much that we all just kind of knew about each other. And when I had to say goodbye to them, it really was like one of the more difficult things I've had to do. And when I went to Louisville, Kentucky, I realized that it was very, very different than Kubasaki High School. And then when I moved again, of course, I had to move just as everything was getting better in Louisville, as I was really building up a community. When I moved here to Maryland, it kind of felt like that I shouldn't even try. But I'm incredibly glad that I did, because I built something amazing and incredible here, not just for myself, but something I believe that my brothers will be able to take advantage of. I have made an impact on as many students and teachers as possible, and I hope that whenever they see teachers, when they see my brothers going to the same tech center and high school that I go to, that they'll think, Canterbury. That's Cooper. That's Cooper's brother. That's
Mini
what I
Cooper.
hope for most.
That is
And
so
that
sweet.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, because I will say something really important that you mentioned. Please always try. Like, wherever you go, even if it's only 10 months. I just finished a 10-month assignment, not even a full year. I got there in July, left in May. Like, it you think, "Oh, it's only 10 months." It's can be a lot more than 10 months. And I will say I think that I've made the most friends ever in a place, and those are friends that I'm going to keep forever, and that's literally the shortest amount of time I've ever lived in a place. So, like, no matter where you are, hang up the pictures on your wall.
Mhm.
A. B. Talk to as many people as you can. Like, do everything that you can to make the most of your experience. And it might take 4 months to fully get involved and be happy about it, but that's way better than 10 months of you feeling lonely. And I would just say, like, do everything you can. And I'm
I
sure you guys agree.
I could not have said it better myself. Funny enough, when I did my 10-month move, I also moved there in July and moved out in May, but not just this last year, but the year before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ava, what about you?
I think,
Hardest thing?
yeah, I would say it's not an immediate effect when you move. Um, it's kind of something that you can feel in like the months to even years after per se. Um, it varies place to place, and I feel like this may be like something more dependent on my particular situation with living in places longer than 10 months, which I can't imagine
Mm.
what it was like for both of you to experience that. But I would say like when you move to a new place, it's like, obviously, like, physically, your surroundings are so different, the weather's so different, there are so many more palm trees here in California. Um, and then, like, you go and talk to different people, but, like, I feel like, as I'm sure you guys have experienced, there's just, like, a certain way of people that is different no matter, like, where you move, and so, when I was going to public school, which is, like, something I hadn't been in for, like, 6 years because I used to go to charter school, so going to a public school that's also, like, in a different state, and there's, like, a different culture and a different way about people, you're just, like, hit with it, and I think I remember in, like, the early months when I first moved here, just, like, talking to different people and just almost like looking for things that remind you of your old home. So I'd be looking in California people for things that were in Texan people, which sounds so strange, but once you
Mm-hmm.
realize that that's not going to be there because, people are always going to be different. There's like it's a sense of sadness that hits you and just kind of like talking to people and realizing it's not the same. I think I remember like literally crying after a FaceTime call with new people because it like you can tell so well that it's like it's not the same and part of you is like it's never going to be the same and like really dramatic, but the reverse side to that is that it's not the same, which is a good thing because now you have all these new people to get to know and understand their way of life. um and so I would say, yeah, the felt effects like in the months after is is kind of the hardest part because it's a long process. It's not like the pain is felt in like a month and then it's just like I'm here now. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love it so much. So I would say that's probably the most difficult part.
Yeah, the grieving I think I'm still grieving, like, leaving Germany because that was 4 years ago now, but, like, those friends that I left, and some of them actually happen to be, like, military civilians, so,
Mhm.
like Ella, who I interviewed, she's a daughter of Dodea teacher,
Hmm.
so she lives in Germany 17 years. So she's still in Germany living her best life, and I'm just like, "Mm, okay."
Yeah, I guess I've never really thought much about the children of Dodea or Doea or whatever it's being called now, right? I was just on a podcast a couple weeks back and they called them Dodds schools. So, whatever it may be called, I've never really
Fill in the blank.
considered the kids of the teachers there.
Mhm. That was a really so I actually have 2 best friends, who are Dodd teacher kids, and it is a really unique because they are in the weird, like, purgatory between civilians, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
military kids because their parents are not active duty in the
Mm-hmm.
military or reserve or veteran, But they're around military kids. They live overseas. All of these things. So I think that's a story that hasn't been told a lot. So go listen to my podcast episode if you haven't yet.
Honestly,
Thanks for the plug.
I would welcome them into the military kid community if
I think
I
they get
had
an
dominion over
honorary.
that.
Yeah.
100%. Right? They've lived among us. I'd say they are us.
Okay. So, how would you say that the military has most impacted your current lifestyle?
Everything.
All of the above. Yes.
I mean, that's the only way I can really think to say it. I mean, they've kind of controlled everything as far as where you live. And that, to me, is everything. Where you live is the people you're around, the kind of life you live.
Mhm.
The house, the room, everything about your life is based on where you live.
Ava?
Yeah. To just like try and give a different answer and be like specific. It's like it's not just the environment, but it's like the way it impacts the people around you, like the way it impacts relationships between your family. Like for me, especially with like my dad being deployed, or like when he was gone a lot because he was also doing like his medical residency while we were like moving around. Like it put a lot of it created like a very deep bond for me and like the rest of the family to like depend on each other, and I feel like
Mhm.
that is something that will just impact you for the rest of your life. So it's the way how like environment shapes who you are and how you interact with those that are closest to you, which oftentimes in the military is your family because they're along with you for each move.
The concerts.
Yeah, exactly. And so I mean, to just list specific traits, I guess there's definitely that resiliency, independence, and also loyalty is a huge one.
You kind of have no other option. Like, who else are you going to rely on? Like, your environment's constantly changing, your circle is changing, but you always have that constant of your family. So, I like that.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to hear all about Bloom military teens, and I assure you, you do, please head on to the next episode where Krupu and Ava talk about everything there is to know about Bloom.